OpenAI cancelled the account of that Tumbler Ridge, BC killer prior to the mass shooting, but didn't notify police. So there is pressure now for governments and companies to work on regulation and clear rules that determine when users should be flagged and reported to law enforcement. But regulating powerful US tech firms has long been difficult. We're joined now by Renee Black, founder and CEO of Goodbot. Renee, thanks for coming on the show. And you're a group of professionals in tech and law working to ensure that technology and AI is accountable and trustworthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most of the people that I think end up in the responsible technology space are people who are tech enthusiasts and really want to see that a lot of these technologies used to solve a lot of our big problems, but also have been very aware of a lot of the challenges. And so want to work on making sure we get those right.
Well, let's start off with this case, the awful case in Tumbler Ridge, BC. Is OpenAI clearly in the wrong here? They cancel an account because of disturbing content, but they don't tell the police.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is not a new problem. This is actually a problem that arose in social media because, for example, social media tools were used also to recruit and radicalize people during different moments in time. So we don't have laws for that. There are sort of self-governance thresholds that have been established for that type of a problem, but we really don't have any rules for that right now either. So AI is an evolution in terms of the type of technology that people are using that might be helpful in flagging, but we don't really have anything for even technologies that we already have that are more well established.
And history shows that these big tech companies will just do their own thing. I mean, they don't care about fines. They'll drag things out in court. They got the digital services tax killed in Canada. And earlier, you remember, they managed to ensure that we're not allowed modified devices.
Yes, yeah, the anti-circumvention laws have made it challenging for people to protect their own safety and privacy. So there's a lot of big issues, and the trade agreements have become weapons for trying to really limit the policy space that Canada has to set its own rules and to try to figure out how to do its fundamental job of keeping its population safe in a way that's consistent with Canadian values. And so, I think being a lot more attentive to what is going on and the ways, the range of ways in which not only the U.S. companies themselves, but also the administration is really trying to limit the opportunities for Canada to regulate is really important.
And they're using trade as a weapon in all sorts of areas, including telling us hands off. We're not allowed to regulate our big tech companies.
Yes, and I mean, I think that's really there's a lot of challenges there because I think in the Canadian context, there's very low trust in companies. Evan Solomon, Mr. Solomon is frequently talking about the fact that the pace of trust is what sort of determines adoption, and there's very low trust among Canadians. And so we want to get this innovation piece right, but we also want to build that trust as well.
I remember hearing Ralph Nader years ago, the consumer champion, saying, regulation will never do it. Governments will get captured. Companies will find a way around it. Governments won't fund it properly. Tort law, lawsuits are the only way to call companies to account.
I mean, certainly there is a lot of legal action happening in the U.S., in the EU as well, but even those have been pushed back on. And so I think that, and Canada just doesn't have the same history of litigation as we've seen in other places. We don't also have the same right of private action in quite a number of areas as well. So that the idea that that's how we're going to be going about, accomplishing this, given just, what our legal context is not appropriate. I think that we want to be thoughtful about what that regulation is. One of the challenges is that when you have an incident like Tumbler Ridge, it really reinforces the gap, and there's a sense of panic and emergency, and that's the risk. There's a risk in those moments that you end up passing bad policy because you're trying to be seen to be doing something. Whereas if we can kind of start to get frameworks in place, and that you're constantly building not only some sort of rigorous ideas and oversight, but you're also starting to just have a better sense for what kinds of responses are possible, and then you can iterate on that. And like we what we don't know, the push has been for self-governance. There's a lot of self-governance mechanisms that are created by the companies and funded by them, and so a lot of we're living through a world where for basically 20 years self-governance mechanisms have been the default, and we are running up against the limits of that, and so now what we need is thoughtful regulation so that we make sure that we are taking a more proactive approach to this. I mean, we have laws for cars and airplanes to make sure that people don't die, and so this is one of the most consequential technologies we need for that too.
Yeah, but I'm biased maybe, but I think unless a government issues a warrant for the arrest of Sam Altman, they'll just shrug it off. Really, I'm quite serious.
Yeah,
they'll shrug it off. It's a cost of doing business. They don't care about fines.
It is a cost of doing business, and that is like it's a major issue. The asymmetry of power and resources, the ability to shape the policy conversations to poison that debate before you even get to a topic, is really problematic because we don't have that. We actually don't have Canadians involved in the conversations, and we don't have we end up having a process in which technology companies have captured the policy conversation even before the public gets a chance to weigh in on that, and that really is leading to a lot of distrust in the way that government's running. So we really need to think about what does it look like to intentionally rebalance that role of public voice in policy conversations.
Thank you very much, Renee. Renee Black is founder and CEO of Goodbot.